It's here in Nakasero where I caught up with Captain Francis Babu relaxing at home. Born as the only child, 1948 in Maokota, south of Uganda, the deep-voiced, eloquent politician tells me, in simple terms, who he is.
I've got mixed blood in me, so it's not one-sided. Therefore, you see that name. That name Babu was actually nicknamed by my grandfather when I was born. He said, this one looks like a babu, you know. And it got stuck, and I was called that name all throughout since I was a kid. I grew up in Kampala here. I went to schools in Kampala. My parents worked here. And I grew up mainly around, just below Baby Sanyu's home, that road going down to Rubaga Road. I went to Agri Memorial School.
After Makerere College, Babu then joined the East African Engineering School on a scholarship and later Oxford Training School in Britain, where he qualified as one of the country's first pilots.
But my group were the first ones, when we came back from training, that started Soroti Flying School.
And this is how he describes the steps that saw him later become captain.
I started on an aircraft called Twin Otter and the DC-3, then went on to another aircraft called the Friendship, Fokker Friendship. It's a tugboat prop, and then I went to a jet called the DC-9, which was owned by East African Airways. Then I went to the 707.
Very many people, I could say young people that will be watching and asking, yes, maybe I want to be also like a pilot, probably like you. What does it take?
You must have the touch, the feel of being a good pilot. You must have the aptitude and if you like, the IQ to be a good pilot. You must think a little bit faster than the norm. It is one of the jobs that requires intensive brain power.
After working with the East African Airways that later collapsed, Babu then went ahead to work in Nigeria with the Nigerian Airways.
Then I flew the small aeroplanes around West Africa. Then I went on a Boeing 737.
Captain Edward Francis Babu retired from flying in the mid-80s and established himself as an astute businessman and a politician. What gave you that spark of saying, now let me get into politics?
I've thought about that thing many times myself. By coincidence, I was staying here actually in 1988. We went to the church here, and there was a lot of arguments that the LC1 chairman who had been here had made some mistakes with things they were supposed to give the residents. So out of the blue, I was pushed in and I was elected as chairman LC1.
His first entry in politics was as a councillor in Nakasero that saw him get to the level of a member of the National Resistance Council.
4th of December, we carried out a by-election, and I actually won, and I went to the NRC.
According to Babu, being in the local council politics made him learn how probably the system worked, and in 1994, this Captain Babu was appointed as a minister.
In fact, I had gone to Britain, and when I was coming back on the aeroplane, I was told I had been appointed a Minister of State.
And at the same time, he was the Member of Parliament for Kampala and a minister for 12 years. Francis Babu is also married to one of the most powerful politicians now, the Speaker of the East African Legislative Assembly, Margaret Ziwa.
We met actually virtually in our political work. She was a councillor, I was a councillor, and some years later we got to understand each other a little bit more. And I think there was a bit of gravitational pull, and we became friends. And eventually we became man and wife, and we've got 2 kids.
And she's a role model in the society, and right now as the Speaker of the East African community.
But she's a very sharp lady, and she knows what she wants, and she knows what she does.
Almost everyone has a role model, and for Babu, it is former South African President Nelson Madiba Mandela that he looks up to in politics.
Madiba is a man who did it all. He paid a price for his country, he became president, and he set an example for the others.
Even the best dancer at one time has to leave the dance floor. Babu is considering retiring and concentrating on his farm and businesses. But as he considers bowing out, what does he think politics means?
Let me put it this way. The reason why I'm in politics is very simple. If tomorrow we have a problem here, you go as a refugee in other people's country, they don't need you. They've got their own problems. So the leaders here must know that we want to stay here. Those who love London, love New York, let's make Kampala New York.
With perhaps more time on his hands now, Babu enjoys being with the family and is very close to the last born, Francis.
He's cool, like on my birthdays, he buys me presents.
And his daughter Edna, joining politics hasn't crossed her mind, but she has learned to live in such an environment.
They did ask us if we're comfortable with it, but I think if it did make him happy, I would go with what he wanted. Strict when he has to be strict, no going out, no doing this, no doing that.
Maurice Ochol, NTV.